Halacha number 6, dealing with the laws of candle lighting. And two things that we've seen. One is that the obligation of candle lighting is on both men and women. The association of candle lighting as a woman's mitzvah is because when you have both a man and a woman in the home, the woman has first rights of candle lighting. The most common example of that is a family with husband and wife, father and mother. The woman or the mother or the wife will light candles, but it would be similar if, let's say, you had a brother and sister living together, sharing a flat. So the sister would light candles. But if there's only the brother, if there's only one guy living alone, or if there's a group of guys, so they would have a full obligation in lighting Shabbos candles. Now, the next point that the Shulchan Aruch says is that, so that we'll ask you the question and we'll answer it. When the family is split, and there is a family member lighting at home, but someone else is also away, when are you covered by the candle lighting at home, and when are you not covered by the candle lighting at home? So what he says is, when you're at home and someone is lighting for you, even though you have your own separate rooms, that doesn't make a difference. The lighting at home covers you when you're at home. So even though you've got, let's say, the example of brother and sister, you can say husband and wife, they really live together. But the brother and sister are flatmates, they each have their own individual room. And maybe they're not even eating together. Nonetheless, she is lighting the Shabbos candles, and that they're both covered. If he is away, so let's say the example the Shulchan Aruch gives is that the husband goes away to learn, ever long, several weeks. So the Shabbos he's away, he has his own room at the yeshiva, and his wife has the house at home and she's lighting there. Is he covered? The answer is no. Because he's away and he has his own place, he is not covered by her lighting, and he will have to do his own lighting and say his own bracha.
And the other way around, like this weekend I was away and Evan was at home. Was he covered by my lighting at where I was?
No.
Okay.
So in other words, the lighting of the family lighting only helps if you're together.
Okay.
If you're away in a separate place, then you're not covered by that family lighting. Facing our body for the tissues, please. Thank you very much. I'm going to mention that as well. But the next halacha is, so what if you're away but you don't have your own room? Give you an example. I go to stay somewhere and someone's got a spare bed in their room, right? Or stay on a couch in the lounge. You can't say that's my room. I'm staying on a couch in the lounge. I'm away from home, so I'm not really covered by my wife's lighting. But I don't have my own room, so I can't really do my own lighting. So what am I then supposed to do? So the Shulchan Aruch says, Tzarich lehishtatef befruta. You need to join, become a partner with a pruta, with a coin. In other words, you need to buy a share in the Balatabayit's candle lighting. So I'm staying at the Robbins Kalman's, I'm sleeping in the lounge. So I'll go to Coroner Evan, I'll say, here's 5 rand. Please can I have a share in your candle lighting? So even though Aviva's lighting at home doesn't help, I'm not at home. And I can't justify lighting my own candles because I don't have my own place. So I have the obligation of candles, but no one to fulfill the obligation for me. Therefore, I join in your candle lighting. So that's the way of kind of solving the problem when my own candle lighting isn't going to work, but I can't justify candle lighting here. Now, I'll tell you where else this comes up. We're going out for Shabbos supper. And let's give the best case. We're going for Shabbos supper in the middle of December. In the next couple of weeks. Earliest candle lighting is like now 6:20, 6:30. Right? The first week of January, 6:33 or something. Earliest candles. So I get to Shul for Mincha. We all come to Shul for Mincha. We haven't lit. We then daven Ma'ariv, so now we're not...
It's too late.
And now we're going to the bag rooms for supper, and we haven't lit candles. So there's two ways you can do it there. Either Aviva can go on ahead, and she can arrive there before the whole community accepts Shabbos, and light candles there. Although, to what extent does that really work? Because, can we say we have our own room there? We don't have our own room there. So the best idea seems to be from here that we'll give the bagram some money and say, please can we buy a share in your Shabbos candles? And then we're included through that. That seems to be the most correct way to do it. Yeah.
People don't practice it. That I know of.
Yeah, I have heard of it.
Have you?
I have heard of it, but I've heard of it more as this is what to do rather than this is what we did. Yeah.
Do people practice any of the stuff found in...
Yes, people do practice quite a lot of it. Now, the problem comes up as well. Let's say earliest candle lighting is 6:15, and we're leaving home at 6:20. So what's going to be? I mean, must Aviva light at 6:15, and then we leave at 6:20, and then we're going to the bagram for dinner. So what did she light for? So that
Depends how long the candles burn for.
yeah. And the idea is, so let's say the candles burn, even if the candles burn long, so you're saying, by the time we get back from supper, so the house will still be lit by candles. So that could be something, is that it still provides Oneg Shabbos, because when we come back, there's still candles
And
lit.
there's light,
Yeah.
which is the whole point.
Yeah. Now let's say that I don't have such long-lasting candles, or I know that the dinner at the bagram is going to be exceptionally long. By the time we get home, the candles are going to go out. So this is problematic now to light at home, because what are you achieving by lighting at home? You're not really providing a light for Oneg Shabbos. So I think the answer is to make sure, so either light at home and make sure that you get some kind of Shabbos enjoyment from it, or join in with the bagram thing. Now the truth is, you don't have to give money. That money is the obvious example, but you have to have some kind of acquisition in the candles, some kind of formal acquisition in the candles. So another thing you could do is you could do a kinyan, right? So I'll say, Jeff, I give you the headphones, you give me a share in your candles, right? And we do that with a kinyan, and then I have a share in the candles. So he gives me back the headphones, and even though money didn't actually have to change hands, but there was some kind of formal agreement.
Do you have to do it before Shabbat then?
You would have to do it before Shabbat, because by the time Shabbat comes in, it's already too late. Yeah. Good. Now, related to this, so now the next question is, so what if you've got a group of individual guys who all are staying together in like a hostel kind of place? So should they all light their own candles, or should one of them light for all? Remember, they're not a family, they're individuals, but they're all staying in the same room. So it is a machloket, what's the best way? But the Ramor says that our Ashkenazi custom is each one lights his own candles and says his own bracha. Next, halakha number 9, he says, if you light in the house and eat in the courtyard, and the candles aren't so long-lasting that you'll get benefit later that night, that would be a bracha levatala. That would be a wasted bracha. And this is the point that we're making, because what are you then achieving with the candle lighting? However, the Mishna Brura says these are the two solutions, and this applies with eating out as well. These are the two solutions. Number one is you light in a room when it's already starting to get a little dark, and you do something connected to Shabbos in that room. So whatever, you start preparing something for the meal or whatever else. Obviously not like cooking and that, but that kind of meal preparation. Option number 2 is that you have them last long, and so when you come back home, you've still got time in which those candles are burning. Now I'll tell you what came up for us this winter came up a couple of times. Aviva had CSO shift, which meant that she had to leave home at like 4:30. Earliest candles was like 5. And trying to think why I didn't light. There was some good reason why I didn't light candles. So we were trying to work out what to do, and the solution we came to was that Aviva would light here at the shul. But you're going to say to me, but that's not good. We're not eating here at the shul. Aviva lit here at the shul. We made kiddush at the shul and had some grape juice to drink, and then went home to have the rest of our meal. So that we did do something with those candles. We stood in the light of those candles and made kiddush. Right, but the idea is that Shabbos candle is not a symbolic thing. You want to say a bracha on Shabbos candles, you have to get benefit from those Shabbos candles, not just think of, well, I'm lighting at home and then going out. You're lighting at home, so then you have to make sure that you'll get some kind of benefit from them. Okay. The next thing is the connection between lighting candles and Kabbalat Shabbat, accepting Shabbat. So this comes from the Bahag.
Sorry, can I just go back 1 second?
Yes.
Like, I understand in times when there wasn't electric light, but today, you light your candles, you've still got your lights on, even if they're in the room that you are, you know what I mean? It does seem very symbolic. It doesn't seem that it's essential.
Yes. So what does Rav Soloveitchik say about that? He says you must turn your lights off, light your Shabbos candles, and then get someone to turn your lights on. Because otherwise you're not achieving...
So then just for that minute they're useful, or whatever. Yeah.
At the time that they are lit, they are providing light. And they're going to provide light unless you don't... There's no prohibition, once you lit your Shabbos candles, no prohibition in providing more light or whatever else. But you have lit Shabbos candles that provide light to the room. But it's for exactly that reason that Rav Soloveitchik said this halacha. And when we had the rabbinic conference in Israel last year, Rabbi Hershel Shechter came to give a shir, Rosh Shiva Vayu, came to give a shir, and this was one of the points that he mentioned. And some of the rabbis were shocked. They said, really? And Rebbe Shechter was there as well. They said, you do this? He says, yeah, this is what we do. And Harry Friedland told me his daughter lives in Israel. And the kids, that's part of their tasks, Erev Shabbos. One of them switches the light off so that the mom can light Shabbos candles, and the other one switches the light on afterwards. But for that reason, that's what Rav Soloveitchik did.
And in the summer also, where it obviously is better than to light later because...
Yes, well, that's why you've always got the earliest candles. Yeah. You can't, if you light before that, it doesn't count. But from that time onwards, again, as long as it's going to last into the night. You're right. If you light it the earliest time, it lasts for 10 minutes and then fizzles.
No. I'm saying you've got so much light in the room.
Yes.
Potentially.
Yes.
Because it's still so light.
Well,
outside.
it's from that point that Rav Soloveitchik derives this halacha. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, okay, so you, in other words, you're correct. That concern was picked up on by Rav Soloveitchik, that this shouldn't be a symbolic thing. Okay. It isn't. It isn't a symbolic thing. You're saying a bracha, saying a bracha. You say a bracha, and then it's got to be real. Okay. Now the Bahag. The Bahag is the Baal Halachot Gedolot, the master of the great halachot. This is one of the books from the 10th century, the 900s. So he's one of a period of time that's called the Gaonim. It's just before the Rishonim, just before Rashi and Rambam and all of them. So he wrote many halachot that we study and derive from. So according to him, once you light Shabbos candles, it becomes Shabbat. And therefore, he says, based on this custom, some women have that after they have said the bracha and lit the candles, they drop the match, and they don't extinguish the match. Because once you've lit the candles, now Shabbos, when you blow it out, now you're blowing out on Shabbos. So just drop it and let it go out by itself. However, some say that if you make a condition that I'm lighting this without accepting Shabbat, then indeed the candles don't accept Shabbat. And some say that it doesn't help to make a condition. If a woman lights candles, it's Shabbos, whether she wants it to or doesn't want it to, the moment she lights Shabbos candles, that is her acceptance of Shabbos. Then he says some argue about this, some argue with the Bahag, with the Baal Halachot Gedolot, and say that it's actually not dependent on Shabbos candles at all. The Ramah says, our custom is that when a woman lights candles, it does accept Shabbat, unless she made a condition, otherwise, unless she said, this is not going to accept Shabbat for me. The general rule is that a condition in the heart doesn't help. Normally when we say you need to make a condition, normally means explicit. However, in this case, a condition in the heart does suffice. So even if she just thinks at the time, I'm lighting candle, but I'm not doing it for the sake of accepting Shabbos, that works. But through this, she does not accept Shabbat for the rest of the family. So she lights candles at 6:15, and the rest of the people are still busy cutting their nails. That's fine. They can carry on cutting their nails until later. And now this is another point that wouldn't be so relevant to us, but for them, lighting candles wasn't just for the meal. Lighting candles was for wherever you wanted light in the house. You put Shabbos candles by the bathroom and Shabbos candles in the kitchen and Shabbos candles here. So he says the main Shabbos candles that we're talking about for accepting Shabbat is the Shabbos candles on the table, Shabbos candles that you're gonna eat with, and you need to leave those candles in the place that you lit them, and not to light them in one place and then move them. For two reasons. The one is if it's Shabbos, you can't be moving those candles. And the other one is that wherever you light it, that's where you're doing the mitzvah. So you shouldn't be moving it around.
So it's they're on the table.
He says, Narit shamadlikin al hashulchan, candles were lighting on the table. However, what he means is, they only had one table. For us, we've got 5 tables in the dining room, right? We've got sideboards and so, as long as it's providing light for the meal, that's really what he means.
And you can't move it the whole of Shabbat.
No, you can't move it the whole of Shabbat. Yeah. So to move a lit candle is a problem, a Torah prohibition. Because by moving a candle, you are causing it to burn more and to burn less. So you're extinguishing and igniting. So those are Torah malachot. And once it's gone out, it's still problematic because it was made muktzah from when Shabbos came in. So we had an interesting question this Shabbos now that so they had the candle lighting ceremony, and they had a whole table full of candles in the hall. So Arvin came to me and he said, "Can we move that table?" So I said, "No." He said, "What about tomorrow and everything else?" I said, "We can't do it." So he said, "Can the staff do it?" So the answer then is yes, you can ask the staff to do it. We need the space and whatever else. The fact that it's muktzah, you can ask someone who isn't Jewish to move something that's muktzah. But that was an important one where this came up as well when we used to go to Rabbi Goldfein for Shabbos supper. So there'd be like 10 tables of guys, 10, 15 tables, and on each table there were candles. And then sometimes what would happen was we wanted to move things around, or more guys came and you needed to move them, but you couldn't move the tables. There was only Jewish guys there, so even if the candles had gone out, certainly if the candles hadn't gone out, even if the candles had gone out, you couldn't move the tables because they had these muktzah candles on them.
But you have the candles on the table.
Candles on the table, yeah. So that comes up as well. It's happened a couple of times. Let's say we're having a big Friday night supper and then a smaller Shabbos lunch. So for Friday night supper, you take out the trestle table and you move the big table, whatever else. You want to light candles on the table. And then for the next day, you want to fold up the trestle table and move the table. You can't do that. If you're going to put candles on the table, then you're not going to be able to move those tables. Okay, good. Halacha number 11. So this is now about personal acceptances of Shabbat. So the first question is, what are the different ways in which people can accept Shabbat? So the most basic way is that Shabbat happens to you whether you like it or not. The sun sets and it's Shabbos. That's way number one. But let's say that you want to fulfill the mitzvah properly, as we've seen in the past, to preemptively accept Shabbat, to fulfill the mitzvah of bringing in Shabbat early. So what are the different ways that we bring in Shabbat early? One of them we just saw. Lighting candles, right? For a lady to light candles. Oh, there's one other point I just want to make on that. So we saw that even though it does work for a woman to say, even in her mind, I'm not accepting Shabbos candle lighting, the Mishna Brura says, however, this should only be done when there is a need. She should only make this, shouldn't make this condition as a standard thing. Every week she says, I'm not accepting Shabbos with my candle lighting. It's from time to time. It's not a standard thing. The standard thing is you light candles that accept Shabbos. You got a reason why it shouldn't be. It's happened before, for example, I've ever wanted to light candles and then get in the car and come with me to shul or something like that. So in exceptional circumstances you can do that, but that shouldn't be the standard because, as we said, some hold that a condition doesn't help, and when she lights it, accepts Shabbos regardless. So we don't hold to that opinion. We're not bound to that opinion, but we like to keep that opinion under usual circumstances. Theo.
But Rabbi, for men,
yes,
I light, make the condition not this is not to accept Shabbos.
Yes.
Because I must still come and pray Mincha.
That's right. Now for men, it is different. For men, it is different. For that reason, because men are not accustomed to bringing Shabbat in with the candles. So what's normal plays a big role in this, as we'll see. So way number 1 is Shabbos happens. Way number 2 is lighting candles. Way number 3, Baruch Hu. Okay, we'll come to Mizmor Shir in a second. Baruch Hu. When you say Baruch Hu, you begin Ma'ariv. Ma'ariv is the evening prayer. Baruch Hu is the official beginning of Ma'ariv. So if you say Baruch Hu, you begin Ma'ariv, so how can it not be Shabbos for you? You can't daven the Ma'ariv of Shabbat and still say that it's Friday afternoon. If you're davening Ma'ariv, then you've accepted Shabbat. Other option? Lachadodi and Mizmor Shir. Lachadodi, boi kala. Welcome the Shabbat bride. If you're saying welcome the Shabbat bride, that sounds like you're saying, let's accept Shabbat. Right? Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat, we're saying this is a song for Shabbat, and why are we saying it? Because it's Shabbat. So that's another acceptance. We've seen in the past what is our custom, and by our custom I mean the kind of standard South African Ashkenazi custom. When do we accept Shabbat? With Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat. Again, ladies obviously through candle lighting, and men through Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat. And how do we see that? What's the proof?
Mourners.
For the mourners. That's when you welcome in the mourners. If we accepted Shabbos earlier than that, you wouldn't be able to console the mourners. You can't console mourners on Shabbos. If we did it later than that, then we wouldn't welcome the mourners in so early. We'd leave it until later, just before Baruch Hu. That's when we bring the mourners in, because they shouldn't be out of Shiva yet, you know. You leave Shiva for Shabbos. So it's the moment that we're going into Shabbos that we welcome in the mourners, console them and welcome them in. So the fact that we do that right before Mizmor Shir, after Lachadodi, shows we haven't yet accepted Shabbat with Lachadodi. We accept Shabbat with Mizmor Shir. Now that becomes relevant for the next halacha, that if the majority of the community have accepted Shabbat, the minority is bound to their Shabbat as well. In other words, Theo says, this Shabbos is just going to chill at home. I'm going to daven at home. I'm going to have my own little dinner. So we start davening, and it's the middle of summer. So Theo says, no, it's like I'm going to watch TV until sunset, 8 o'clock. Yeah. Going to watch TV, have my bra face, right? So everything, I'll stop 5 minutes before sunset. I'll stop at 5 to 8. Meanwhile, 5 to 8, we are already walking past his flat. We finished Ma'ariv and everything. And he's sitting there, bra going. And so that's not allowed. Because if you are part of this community, and the majority of the community has accepted Shabbat, then it's Shabbat for you also.
Why don't you put that time in the TGIS?
So that is the time that we put in the TGIS.
Okay.
And that's why you'll see
last time for candlelight.
the latest time for candle lighting. And that's why you'll see that even as we go into summer, and it gets later and later and later, the latest time is 7:15. Because 7:15 is the time we get to Mizmor Shir.
Okay, the other, just for interest, another time when this becomes important or relevant is like Pulimud. We were thinking of doing a communal Kabbalat Shabbat.
Yes.
And so there are different denominations and there are different... so we were trying to figure out when...
You're complicit.
I gave a Josh and find out about being complicit. So that's what Jeff said. Yeah.
I'll ask it off the record.
No, it's fine. No, you can have it.
So we wanted to be able to maybe use musical instruments. It didn't
Yes.
happen in the end.
Yes.
We wanted to do that.
Yes.
But we wanted to know, but one of the questions we asked was, when do we need to stop that?
Yes.
Because when does Shabbat come in and then
Yes.
it's not okay? for
Exactly.
certain
Yeah.
groups.
So what you would then have to do is, you could do your musical instruments, provided sunset, again, let's say sunset's at 8.
Yeah.
So you can do musical instruments up until the end of Lachadodi.
Yeah.
Then what you would do is all the ladies and single men or whatever else would go and light candles. And then you'd come back and say Mizmor Shir.
Okay.
You can have a musical.
Musical Kabbalat Shabbat.
Because before,
Up until
it's
the end of
before
the
Mishna.
Haggadah.
We've had a chair once. We had a chair for Purim 2 or 3 years ago. We brought down Johnny Sklar from Joburg to musical Kabbalat Shabbat. And they've had a chair. Before I came, they've had a chair a few times. Hard to find people who got a guitar and know the tunes for Kabbalat Shabbat. But people can do it. And you know, so it's a nice thing. People do it. They did it at Or Samach with Rabbi Miller, because he loved guitar and he had all those tunes. So they had, during December, that year that he was here, every second week, I think they had a musical Kabbalat Shabbat. That's interesting. I mean, halakhically, there's no problem with it. Historically, it became a sign of the Haskalah in Europe. That's why shuls which had an organ in them, and they played the organ during Kabbalat Shabbat and stopped before Mizmor Shir. Shuls which had an organ were like Haskalah shuls, because that was seen as like being on the edge. Even though halakhically it's fine, but it was like, churches have organs, and so the shuls that have organs, it's a whole discussion.
It wasn't the norm not to play music until recently, if you think about it. The temple had music.
The temple had music, but the temple wasn't.
Used to blow trumpets and they played the harp.
Now that is true, but that
music.
Wasn't recently. That was 2,000 years ago.
Until then, I don't know. I'm pretty sure they had music. When did they stop having music?
They stopped having music in the temple 2,000 years ago. The question is, did they ever have music in shuls?
I'm pretty sure they did.
I'm not pretty sure they did. I mean, it's possible. It is possible, but I'm not. I certainly wouldn't say I'm pretty sure that they did. It is possible, but.
But there are also more extreme opinions that we shouldn't have music at all. So I mean that came up in this discussion.
Yeah. That's right, Moshe Feinstein.
Yeah, we shouldn't have music at all. No,
thing was
stun.
music.
Yeah.
Was not
Yeah.
thing.
But what else did I want to say about this? Now, I'll tell you an interesting question I had. So questions like this. When the majority of the community has accepted Shabbat, it's Shabbat for everyone, whether you like it or not. So again, we're now davening Mizmor Shili on Shabbat. Theo's taking his, Shabbos off. He's got to switch off his bra flace and turn off the TV as well. Right? Not up to him. He's part of the community.
On the basis that people can't.
However, the question is like this. What if you're part of a community where you don't have a majority who keep Shabbat?
That's out.
I want to say, but imagine something here. You don't have a majority. So does it still? Yeah. So, no. So does it still kick in?
Not our shul, but Marrero.
No, I think yeah. In fact,
The vast majority.
There's maybe one shul in Cape Town where the majority keeps Shabbat.
That's
Chabad, I think.
Chabad, okay. Yeah, Chabad.
Right? It's possible that's right. So for the other shuls, so what would you say? Would you say at the whole community? So I asked Rabbi Herschel Schachter this question. And I don't think he understood the question. Because in America, they don't really understand. I'm saying I'm the rabbi of an Orthodox shul. And we've got, everyone coming, and they all, they accept Shabbat, and then they drive home. So, what, isn't it considered an acceptance of Shabbos in order to, so to speak, drag the rest of the community, impose upon the rest of the community that Shabbat has now begun? So he said, well, what does it mean that they're accepting Shabbat? So I said that they're accepting Shabbat, that they won't, work anymore. They're not going to work. Most of them aren't going to work. So he says, okay, so that's like an acceptance of Shabbat for not to work. But I was like, I didn't understand what he meant. And I don't think he understood the case too well. I spoke to Diane Badil about this recently. And he said to me, he thinks that it would not impose Shabbat on the rest of the community. He thinks that it wouldn't. But he's going to look into it.
You see, we have got a nominally Orthodox population that practices reform and all that name.
I wouldn't say practice reform. Reform's a whole different theology. It's a whole different theology, not just a practice. I could say non-practicing. I don't think it's the same as practicing reform. Yeah.
And if you obviously if you're going camping somewhere outside of Cape Town, you can bring it in.
Yes, that's right. Now you've got no community, so you can do it. You can have your braai until 5 minutes before sunset. Yeah.
So I've got a question whether people could be able to see you or not. So going past the braai is one thing.
Yes.
But if he's inside his room.
He's a part of so he's part of the community. So anyway, I just saw. By the way, Dan Badil said he wanted to check. So I saw I got an email from him, but I haven't read it yet. But that contains the answer. That contains the answer to this question. Just so you know. Yeah. Okay, but that's the question. The fact that they say we're accepting Shabbat, but then there still is malacha that's done. So is that considered an acceptance, and how does that work? Okay.
There's African question.
Yeah. Now somebody comes into, and British I think, but not American. No. Now somebody comes into a city, and there they've already accepted Shabbat. They have an early Shabbat. So he's now walking in. That's still the sun's high in the sky, right? And somebody's driving down from Joburg for holidays, and they come in, and as they arrive, they hear that actually, at 7:20, We've already accepted Shabbat. Let's say all the shuls have already accepted Shabbat. Let's say that it works. Everyone's already accepted Shabbat. So what do? So he says, you let, if you're carrying your wallet or whatever else, you let it drop. You don't like start unpacking all your stuff, and you basically you got to accept Shabbat as well. Okay. Then the Shulchan Aruch says, what if it was a cloudy day and people thought that it was already getting dark? They lit their candles, they daven Ma'ariv, and then the clouds scatter, and they see that it's actually still daytime. So he says, provided they did this whole Kabbalat Shabbat after Plag HaMincha. Plag HaMincha is the earliest time for candles and the earliest time for Ma'ariv. Provided they do it after the earliest time for Ma'ariv, even if they thought it was really nighttime and it wasn't really nighttime, but it was a time that it was acceptable to accept Shabbat. So then he says it takes, but for a community, not for an individual. Not for an individual. Yeah. Because he didn't daven with the intention to daven during the day. And some say that those who lit candles are allowed to carry on. They are not allowed to carry on with work, and those who didn't light candles can do work. And some say that candle is now considered like a Shabbos candle, and even other members of the family would not be allowed to add oil to it or anything else because it's like bound by Shabbos. It's not really such a relevant case today, so we won't go into too many of the details. Okay, next one. So somebody forgot to daven mincha or delayed davening mincha, was running late and everything else, and he comes in. This used to happen at yeshiva sometimes. A guy will come in, and the rest of the yeshiva is already saying Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbat, and this guy hasn't daven mincha yet. It's all day. He still could daven mincha, but so what does he do in that situation? He shouldn't daven mincha in that shul. Because in that shul, it's Shabbos in the shul already, so you can't daven Friday's mincha. He should go outside into the foyer or whatever else, daven mincha over there, and then come in and daven Ma'ariv together. If he's already accepted Shabbat with them, let's say that he walks in and they say Baruch Hashem Avrach, and he said Baruch Hashem Avrach L'Lamved, now he's accepted Shabbat. So now he can't go back and daven mincha because he can't daven Friday's mincha once it's already Shabbat. So then he should do the two Ma'arivs. There's this idea, if you forget one prayer, so you do a double one for the next one, so you'll do the double Ma'ariv. Another one is you walk in and they're busy davening L'Chadodi. So they haven't yet accepted Shabbat. You could start your mincha, but you're not going to finish mincha before they accept Shabbat. So what is it? Is it that you have to finish mincha before they accept Shabbat, or is it that you have to start mincha before they accept Shabbat? So the answer is you have to start mincha. You have to start mincha because they said so it's acceptable. You walk in and sing L'Chadodi, you can start your mincha midah. I've seen people do that, yeah. You can start your mincha midah even though they're busy in L'Chadodi. However, he says it's still better to go outside. It's still better to go outside.
Is there a protracted discussion about what happens if it's overcast? I'm just curious. I don't know that.
Not particularly protracted.
But it is.
Yeah. Go through the different opinions and which opinion do we follow.
Just to look at the sky.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Okay. Now he says... Okay, so some say if... I accepted Shabbat early. This is the case. I accepted Shabbat early. For whatever reason, I wanted to bring in Shabbat early, so, I do that. Or let's say I'm living alone and I light my Shabbos candles, still plenty of time. And then I arrive at shul and I see that the lights weren't switched on. And Zach's there early as well. He's sitting and davening and whatever, learning. He hasn't accepted Shabbat yet, but he came early to learn. Can I say to him, Zach, please switch on those extra lights? I couldn't do it myself.
You can.
Can he be my Shabbos guy, right? Yeah, you can. You can. And I can even benefit. So I can ask him to do it and I can even benefit. Because what I'm asking him to do is not forbidden at all. It's my own, personal prohibition, but there's nothing wrong with him doing it. Yeah. And similarly, when Shabbat comes out, if I'm bringing Shabbat out late, but Zach's already brought Shabbat out, so I can ask him, please get me the matches and this and that, even though I haven't brought out Shabbat yet. I'm allowed to.
So
I'm
how
allowed
does
to
that
ask them to do
extend?
that.
If you got a more strict custom around something, can you ask someone else who hasn't got the custom to do it?
Now that's a good question. Exactly how it extends. I'll tell you two things on that. The one is I have a friend in Yeshiva. There's a whole question around opening things on Shabbat, like cans and all those kinds of things. Yeah, is it considered making a kli? Is it considered making a container? So Rabbi Goldfein was very lenient on these matters, and that was from what they taught him in Tells. They weren't concerned about it. So we would, open packets and cartons and whatever. There was a friend of mine who'd learnt in another yeshiva where they were strict about it. So he once came on a Shabbos, you could bring your own treats to the bracha if you wanted. And he had like whole wheat challah and that. So if you want to, that nice stuff. But it was always Rabbi Goldfein was big on health. So sometimes guys would bring chocolates or custard, or they just brought a carton of custard. And he said, I forgot to open it. And he couldn't unscrew the top, because when you unscrew it, then, it was locked in, or undo it. So he wasn't sure what to do. So I said to him, close your eyes. So he closed his eyes, and I took it, and I opened it, and I put it back. I said, the problem's solved. But there, he didn't ask me to do it. He genuinely, I don't think it even occurred to him that But that's the one. The other question, so I think that would be fine. If I did that on my own accord, I don't think he'd be forbidden to benefit from it. The other question would be, so they asked Rav Moshe Feinstein, there is a kind of meat that I hold is permitted, and someone else says is forbidden. Yeah, let's say king clip. So we're having a king clip, and I'm having over somebody who says, nah, can't eat king clip. And I hadn't really planned it in advance, but it so turns out that for dinner we're having king clip. And I see that plate in front of them, a king clip, and they go out with their fork to eat it. Am I obliged to tell them, you can't eat that? Or is there no problem with me allowing them to eat it? Good one, right? Really?
Yes.
Many times.
No, well, I had vegans at Sukkot. And the challah, I wasn't doing the vegan challenge. My challah had egg. And they and I didn't know what to do.
Yes. So Rav Moshe says...
They weren't allergic to eggs, but it was there.
Yeah. So...
I'm scared.
So Rav Moshe says, it depends. So this really revolves around lifnei iver. Torah says, lifnei iver lo tein michshol, don't place a stumbling block in front of the blind. And the main explanation is, don't cause someone else to sin. So he says, so this depends. Is lifnei iver a law between man and man? Don't do something mean to someone else. Or is it between man and God? Don't be the cause of them sinning. He says, if it's between man and God, then you're not being the cause of them sinning. Because you can't eat king clip. They're just being silly. Right? They're incorrect. You can't eat king clip. They're just incorrect. So then, if it's a mitzvah between man and God, you can let them eat it. If it's a mitzvah between man and man, they believe it to be problematic, and therefore you would have to respect it. And that's what he says. He doesn't tell us which one it is. He just says those are the two different. Those are the two different ways. It seems that it's more that it isn't an obligation, but it's a midat chasidut. It's a good thing. It's a good thing if you do it. The example he brings is from Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. They had different opinions about who you could marry. So the Gemara says that Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, even though they had these big disputes, they still respected one another and let one another know who you could and couldn't marry. She says, if it's a basic halakha, what praise is it that they still let one another know? You're obligated to let one another know, unless you say it isn't really required to, because you believe they aren't doing anything wrong. But it's a good thing that you should let them know according to them. Tell you where this comes up as well. Pour somebody a cup of coffee, and they say, is it Chalav Yisrael?
Yeah. I'm also thinking that.
Yeah, so that comes up as well. Now, I say, yes. In other words, as far as, for example, Rav Moshe Feinstein says, this is acceptable as Chalav Yisrael. I had one of the Chabad rabbis and I were talking Saturday night. So we're talking about the Chabad shchita and the regular shchita and all of this and that. I said to him, I can't understand why you won't eat Rabbi Meisel's shchita. So he says to me, and I think this was good. It was good for me to hear. He says, it's not that I don't eat Rabbi Meisel's shchita. It's that I do eat Chabad shchita. I'm careful to eat Chabad shchita. It's not that I don't eat Rabbi Meisel's shchita. So he says that's the distinction. In other words, I don't believe that it's not kosher. It's a personal stringency that I take on. That's acceptable. That's I think that's fine. You want to take one?
Wonder of Chabad, I got an answer for every.
Yeah. So he says to me, it's not like Chalav Yisrael. It's not like Chalav Yisrael. I have to eat Chalav Yisrael and I can't drink Chalav Akum. Can't drink non-Jewish milk. So to him, I also can't drink Chalav Akum. Also can't drink non-Jewish milk. He says, no, but you do. I said, no, I don't. I drink Chalav companies, right? We've had this discussion. I drink the Chalav companies. I don't drink Chalav Akum. Everyone agrees you can't drink Chalav Akum. It's just a question of what's Chalav Akum, what's unsupervised milk. So I agree, I don't drink unsupervised. We just have different views on what's considered supervision. So I had an answer for him as well. So that was...
So when I said many times, it's like if I make popcorn for a Chalav Israel kid and I haven't used the pot for 24 hours, but they don't want anything in my pots.
Yes.
Like, because my pots are all milking.
Yes.
So, and they're not Chalav Israel.
Yes.
So that's like when I've like
exactly.
Like, can I give the child popcorn or not?
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of cases. So
yeah.
That's where Moshe Feinstein says that's the. What I would say though is if you want to build good relationships and people find out, one of your kids mentions to them, there's the milk and wine, it's going to be damaging to the relationship.
All my pots are the same. You know what I mean?
No, I do know.
So
yeah.
But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Challenging.
No, I hear that. Okay. So now the next halacha, he says, so you're allowed to ask them to do malacha for you and you're allowed to benefit from their malacha. So even cook supper. So let's say I want to bring out Shabbat later, right? And Viva brings out Shabbat earlier and she cooks a meal. So for me, it would be cooking on Shabbat. I haven't brought Shabbat out yet. But for her, it's not cooking on Shabbat. So can I then eat it? Yes, I can then eat it. Okay. That's the end of chapter 263. Now, chapter 264. Chapter 264, we're not going to spend too much time on. And the reason is because it's a lot of this is from Bameh Madlikin, right? And what it's really about is about the quality of the wick and of the oil, which for us is not really a relevant question. We don't buy wicks and oil of dubious quality. We have standard candles, and we use the candles and zehu. But we'll just kind of go through this to at least a cursory extent. So he says the main thing is that you have to have a kind of wick and a kind of oil that it's going to burn with a stable flame. Because our great concern is that it's going to flicker, and you're going to then come to adjust it, and you're going to adjust it on Shabbos without thinking, and you're going to end up breaking Shabbat. That's the concern. A lot of those things, it's the kind of, where we see this kind of thinking is with a lot of concerns about things that you would do without thinking on Shabbat. For example, somebody asked me, can I wear a smartwatch on Shabbat? So my answer has generally been absolutely not. So they'll say, why? Is there malacha, it's tracking your steps, you aren't really doing it. I said, no, the issue is, any of these fitness devices, the issue is that you spend your time going like this, you're going like this with it and touching it and tapping it and flipping it. And they say, no, I'll put it on always on. I said, how many times do you press buttons on that thing every day? They say you look at your cell phone 100 times a day, right? So the watch, I don't know, 60 times a day you press buttons. On Shabbat, you're not going to press buttons. It's just unrealistic. Obviously, you're going to press buttons. Same discussion comes up with...
It's not muktzah.
Is it muktzah? It could be that it's muktzah, but...
It's alpha.
It's,
well... But your Fitbit isn't. Your Fitbit's... I don't know.
So
the Fitbit, I get this.
Yes. Yeah. So why you tap it? They got the flag, right? You tap it to see how many dots you're on and whatever else. Yeah. So I think it's a non-starter. But muktzah is more subtle than we tend to think. There are many things that are muktzah that you can still use on Shabbat. For example, a hammer. Hammer is muktzah. It's used for building. Building's forbidden on Shabbat. However, if I want to use a hammer to crack nuts, that's permissible. Because depending on the kind of muktzah, you're allowed to use a muktzah item for a non-muktzah purpose. Depending on the item. So we'll do that later on when we see the laws of muktzah, but I just want to make that point that I don't know that the muktzah would cover it. However, that this kind of thing of you're going to end up doing something wrong without thinking. The same question comes up with glasses outside of an Eruv. I want to walk to shul and I want to wear either my sunglasses or reading glasses. So reading glasses is more problematic because you are carrying them. They're reading glasses. You're walking around. You're not going to walk around wearing them. You're going to walk around with them perched on your nose. Okay, but let's say sunglasses. So with sunglasses, it is a discussion, but those who prohibit it say because you often end up taking off your sunglasses without thinking. You're walking along, cloud passes in front of the sun. You're walking in a shady road, so you take off the sunglasses so you can see more clearly. Suddenly you're carrying your sunglasses.
What if you just always slide it on your head?
So sliding on your head, is that wearing them or is that carrying them?
Wearing them.
So I asked Rabbi Avi Goldfein, and he said that's carrying them. Then I asked another rabbi, and he said that's wearing them. So I said, but Rabbi Avi Goldfein, who was his rabbi also, said that it's carrying them. He said to me, you Rasha, you wicked person. He says, you ask him and then you come and ask me. So it seems that there are those who are okay with, with wearing it. But I get what Rabbi Avi Goldfein saying. Are you really wearing them? I mean, who says, I'm going out for an hour, let me put my sunglasses on my head?
No, but you can use it to keep your hair back.
So if that's, okay, so I mean, I've never done that personally. I do.
I do that all
in
the
other words,
time.
as an Alice band.
Yeah.
In other words, I do not intend to wear these glasses as sunglasses. I intend to spend the next hour wearing them as an Alice band. I'm saying, do people do that?
No, but if you go inside, you are using it as an Alice bat in a sense. It's like intention.
So you could even say that maybe it's different, for men, but as you say, it depends on intentions. I'm not sure. But Rabbi Avi Goldfein wasn't keen. Certainly for me, the answer he gave me was no. But that's an example. If I'm walking with the sunglasses on, what's the problem? There's no problem. The problem is that you're likely to take them off without thinking. So that's the same idea here with the... and it's the same thing with musical instruments, by the way. You're playing guitar. What's wrong with playing guitar on Shabbos?
I come to fix it.
The problem is that a string's going to snap and I'm going to replace the string, or it could even be that I'm going to tune it. That even could be a problem. So a friend of mine who's a musician, so he said, when he really thought about this, he thought about how many times he picks up his guitar and then starts adjusting the tuning. So he says he thinks that is correct.
No, you tune it almost every time.
Okay. So you're fixing it. You're fixing it. It's not a good instrument. Now you're making it into a good instrument. So it's a fixing.
Because heat and cold, the guitar changes.
Yeah. Vegans would need nylon strings, eh? So the next thing is...
So what was the thing with having non-Jewish performers play music on Shabbat?
Fascinating. I was just learning about this. So in the Shulchan Aruch, he says, the context they bring it is for Chatan Kala. For Chatan Kala, there's a mitzvah to bring joy to the Chatan Kala. To play music is rabbinically prohibited, as we said. It's not from the Torah to play. To fix the instruments is from the Torah, but to play music is not prohibited by the Torah. So it's a rabbinic prohibition on Shabbos. And the rule is you can ask non-Jews to violate a rabbinic prohibition for the sake of a mitzvah. So, for example, that's where it came in. You have to ask someone who isn't Jewish to push the pram to shul outside of the Eruv. Why? Because pushing the pram is rabbinically prohibited. Asking non-Jews is rabbinically prohibited. You can ask the non-Jew to do the rabbinic prohibition for the sake of the mitzvah. What's the mitzvah? So we can come to shul and daven. So that, all these things.
So could we get a non-Jewish band to play at the services every Saturday?
So the question is for what mitzvah? So what mitzvah would that be to play? So maybe you could say Oneg Shabbat, but the more straightforward one is for the Simchat Chatan V'Kala. We're having a Sheva Brachas. Bagrams are hosting a Sheva Brachas. I'll tell you about the Bar Mitzvah in a second. Bagrams are hosting a Sheva Brachas, and Chas and Kala are coming. And there's many. I've been to Sheva Brachas where they have musicians or a musician, a guy sitting with a keyboard or a DJ kind of guy. So that's what they want to get, a non-Jew to play music. So Shulchan Aruch says, yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Have you
ever seen such a thing?
I've never seen such a thing. Now, I will say, I don't think Amnon would mind me putting this even on the public YouTube video. Yeah. Amnon wanted to do this for Joseph's Bar Mitzvah. We'd learned this halacha. So Amnon came and he says, for a Bar Mitzvah, it's for Oneg Shabbos. Let's bring in instruments, non-Jews to play the instruments in shul on Shabbos.
Let's take advice on that.
Yeah. So I just heard Mark Shapiro was speaking about the same thing. So he says, there is such a heter. He says, who's ever heard of such a thing? He said, that's what he said. Who's ever heard of somebody doing such a thing? Nonetheless, it's in Shulchan Aruch, and he was going through the Ben Ish Chai and what the Ben Ish Chai said about it. Now, if you ask me, so did the Ben Ish Chai say you could do it or you couldn't do it? I don't remember. I listened to all his shirim twice. I'm still the first time on the Ben Ish Chai. So I can't remember. I remember the Ben Ish Chai addressed it, and it was noteworthy. But I mean, the point that did stick with me is it's one of these things that even though in halacha it seems to be acceptable, the Jewish people have said no, that's not how we.
Yeah. I don't like that at all because it just totally prevents any innovation. Basically.
Yes.
You know, it's like pre-whatever. The 80s, women weren't saying Kaddish and Shul, you know, for example.
No, it's not true.
Isn't it? Okay,
that's
fine.
not true. In Lithuania, they were. Rav Henkin speaks about it. Rav Moshe Feinstein speaks about it. Rav Soloveitchik said they in Vilna. He was in Vilna in the Vilna Gaon's Shul. Women said Kaddish.
Okay, all right, but I mean there are things that if they're halachically allowed, they're halachically allowed.
Yes.
Guitar on Kabbalat Shabbat. You walk into a shul and they're playing. The rabbi's playing a guitar on Kabbalat Shabbat. So I never saw it, even though I'm not sure.
But it's only because you're not used to it.
Maybe, but you develop that stuff.
I don't know, service.
Yeah.
If for sure, I mean, I wouldn't mind if for sure had money to hire a non-Jewish choir.
Yeah.
You know, I'd play a violin or something.
Yeah.
Well, you never know. You could get more people to come to shul.
Sure.
That could be the mitzvah.
Yeah. So I just want to point out now when you say it close the door to innovation, what I would say is some innovations yes, and some innovations no, and
but that's very subjective.
So yeah.
So I think clapping in shul is like an innovation.
A lot of people, it's true. Congregational singing is an innovation. Never used to be such a
It used to
thing.
be done by the choir.
That's an innovation.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's a good innovation.
So it's a good innovation. So I'm saying this. There is room for innovation. There are innovations that happen. Some yes and some no. And there's all kinds of things that there's many of the great rabbis say. That the Jewish people have a sense. The Gemara says, "Im einam neviim b'nei neviim haim." If they are not themselves prophets, they are the children of prophets. And therefore, often the Jewish people say that's just not right. Why is it just not right? Hashem doesn't seem to have a problem with it. Just not right.
But sometimes it's just because you're not used to it.
Sometimes. So that's what the great rabbis need to work out. You need to know a lot of Torah. Yeah.
They
Good.
prohibited if you started a show and you had music for Kabbalat Shabbat. No one you'd still be a member of the US.
Well, a lot of it, I mean, as I said, Or Samach had it, for many weeks. It's not, a lot of this depends on time and context and the situation. I'll give you examples about this as well. In Hungary, they had a number of decrees that came in to separate those who were starting to violate halacha from those who were committed to tradition. One of them was weddings in shul. It is absolutely forbidden to have a wedding in a shul. You have to get married outside. That's the rule. Under the open sky, forbidden to have a wedding in a shul.
Why is that?
Because all the churches get married we're having the ceremonies in the church. And a lot of Jews wanted to imitate non-Jews by insisting on having the wedding in the shul. Now, historically, sometimes weddings were in shul and sometimes weddings were inside. But it was never a particular one way or the other. Once people started saying they dafka want the wedding in the shul, so the Hungarian rabbis made a rule that you dafka cannot have a wedding in a shul. Now the rule was the bima in the front of the shul for Torah reading. So there were shuls that started making the bima in the front. Why? Again, in imitation of the churches. So the rabbi said, if there is a bima in the front of the shul, that shul is out. That shul is out. It's no longer considered an Orthodox shul. So if they would go to Claremont today, they'd get a fright.
They used to have a female choir at Claremont.
That's
Mixed.
yeah.
Mixed.
So
Worse.
so you go to Claremont today, they'd get a fright. There's a bima in front of the shul. So they asked Rav Moshe both of those questions. There's a rabbi who says, I'm the rabbi of a community. This couple is insisting on getting married in the shul. I think it's a big aveira, but I'm scared I'll lose my job if I protest. What should I do? Moshe says, what are you worried about? You're not in Hungary, right? This is not an issue.
Well,
So
the hungry went to America. That's a problem.
yeah. He says, what do you, but again, he's answering from a Lithuanian perspective, where these things were never accepted. There's a shul where they say they want to put the bim in the front. He says, look, I don't understand. Are you going to hear properly? You're not going to hear properly. The main reason the bim is in the middle so everyone can hear properly. It's going to be in the front. Maybe people won't hear properly. If you think that people will still hear properly, okay. But he's not bothered at all by the policy considerations. However, a lot of the time, policy considerations are very important. That's on the one hand, it's subjective. On the other hand, you've got to use your best judgment, weighing up all the considerations.
But Rabbi, isn't a shul's built like a temple?
Yes.
That's why the bima must be at that spot.
That's what the Khatam Sofer said. He was the Hungarian rabbi who was behind a lot of the a lot of these decrees. But Rav Moshe Feinstein says, I don't know where the Khatam Sofer gets that from. It was never said. No one ever said that before the Khatam Sofer. That's what Rav Moshe says.
That does make sense if you look at the layout.
Yeah, it does make sense, but nobody ever said that before the Khatam Sofer. So the Khatam Sofer says a point that makes sense. But does that mean that this is now the halacha for all generations because one rabbi said a point that makes sense? It doesn't work like that. You can't say you have to because you don't have to.
On the music thing,
Uh-huh.
I think what the rabbis are afraid of, obviously I wasn't before, is that it will go that way. Now it's non-Jews playing. Later on, it gets confused. Jews starts playing.
Can I
It's a
say?
slippery slope.
There was Rabbi Popak told me when Chabad burnt down many years ago. So it burnt down on a Shabbos. So the firemen came. Now they didn't have an Erev then. So the Jews couldn't bring the Torahs out. And they were worried the Torahs were all going to get destroyed. So the firemen came. So they said to them, please bring the Torahs out, right? It's a rabbinic violation for a mitzvah and whatever else. So they went. So one of the firemen came to them afterwards. He says, thank you for the opportunity. I'm Jewish and it was so great for me. Yeah. Okay, let's do one more section over here. So they've got a whole lot of different things about, as I said, dubious wicks and dubious oils and things that don't really burn nicely and combinations of things that burn nicely and don't burn nicely. And basically all of that we don't like. We want something that's going to burn nicely and clearly. We saw earlier that you should even spend more money to buy good, nice candles. And as I say today, it's not. It's pretty available and it's not such a problem. The next one, 265. The main thing there, also from Bamei Madlikin, the main concern is that you'd have the burner itself and then a feeder. So what I mean is you've got Aladdin's lamp, but we want more oil than we've got in the little Aladdin's lamp. So we have a little drip thing above where we pour the olive oil in and it drips below into it. Now, if you set that all up before Shabbos, what's the problem? You've got your lamp and you've got your well of oil that's providing with more oil. Not a problem. The problem is that olive oil has more than one use. It's great to use in your candle, and it's also delicious to have with your challah or your salads. So what we're worried is that I'm busy having my salad. There's not enough olive oil, but there's a little jar over here. So I just take it and I pour it out. I'm not fiddling with the candle. But since this was set up Erev Shabbos as part of the fuel for the candle, I now am shortening the life of that candle. It would be like cutting away the bottom half of a candle, which you can't do on Shabbat because it's a slow extinguishing. The candle's going to go out at 9, now it's going to go out at 8. So it's a delayed action extinguishing of the fire. You're not allowed to do that. So therefore the rabbi said, don't create these systems where there's a discrepancy, where there's a separation between one part of the candle and another part of the candle, because you're going to end up messing with it. As I said, that's also in Bamei Madlikin. That's chapter 265.
Is it preferable to use oil?
Is it preferable to use oil?
The fire's the mitzvah.
The fire is the light is the mitzvah.
Yeah, there is such a thing. There is such a
Oil
thing.
is first and then it's a candle.
Yes. However, it might be different. It might be different today, but it could be. Especially say in in memory of the temple and those kinds of things. For Hanukkah, I think we say that.
Yeah.
But I have to see. I have to look at it again. And then what we're going to see next time, chapter 266, is someone who is walking on the road. He's trying to get somewhere and he's delayed and this and that, and he's on the road when Shabbos comes in. So what does he do? Please God, see you next time.